Shalom from Kerem, where currently we're being blessed by Geshmei Bracha. Based on the Masechet Sofrim, there's a practice of saying Perek Mizmor Shiur Chanukah Beit LeDavid on Chag Chanukah. That Perek is somewhat of a confusing Perek. Confusing in the following sense. Was that Perek said at a time of distress and Eit Tzara? Or was it said at a time of Yeshuah? On one hand, the Perek says, Aromimcha Hashem ki dilitani, lo simachta oivayli, shivati alecha v'terpe'eni, ha'alite min sha'on nafshi, which certainly points to the fact that it was said at a time of salvation, a time of hoda'ah. On the other hand, you also have psukim, Elecha Hashem Mikra v'al Hashem et Chanan, ma betze b'damri b'ridzti al shachat, heotcha fargi damitecha, shema Hashem b'chaneni, which would indicate that is being said be'eit tzara. In the Perush Dat Mikra of Mosad Rav Kook, he suggests three approaches. According to one approach, the Mizmor was said be'eit tzara, and those psukim of Hoda'ah are in effect David HaMelech accepting upon himself that at the time when the Yeshua comes, he will thank God. We know that there's a concept of person being noder be'eit tzara. Yaakov Avinu takes the neder of giving maaser be'eit tzara, and in effect, David HaMelech is saying that at the time when the redemption will come, he'll give thanks. Alternatively, he suggests that perhaps this mizmor is being said at the time of the Yeshua, and those psukim that speak of bakasha, they are David HaMelech reminding himself and stating that in the time when the tzara was still upon him, he called out to God, and he remembers that through his bakashot that the Yeshua came about. A third alternative, though, that is suggested is that perhaps the Perek was said at the time of the Yeshua, and David Melech, at the time of the Yeshua, he realizes how fragile human existence is, and he feels that it's an opportune time when he's thanking God to ask God for salvation for future issues that he might need to deal with. I think we might add that not only is a time of thanks an opportune time to ask for future salvation, but the very fact that a person gives thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that in of itself is something which is a segula for future Yeshuot. There's a beautiful Derashah of Rabbi Eiger that Rabbi Friedman quotes. There's a pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk in Tehillim Nun says, Zovech toda yichabdanani v'sam derech arenu b'yeshe Elokim. I believe it's towards the end of that Perek Nun. Zovech toda yichabdanani. One that brings the korban toda is honoring God. V'sam derech arenu b'yeshe Elokim. I believe that some Baalei Apshat interpret the end of the pasuk as saying that if a person sees to it that his ways are proper, that's something which brings the Yeshua. But Rabbi Eiger apparently interprets the pasuk in the following fashion. The end of the pasuk connects back to the beginning. The beginning of the pasuk states that if a person brings a korban todah, gives thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that brings honor to God. And continues the pasuk, says, V'sam derech, by giving thanks, that paves the way for seeing future Yeshuot. Person that shows appreciation to God, so God is more than happy, so to speak, to give him a Yeshua also in the future. If a person is kofer batova, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, why should I help this fellow? But if a person shows appreciation for that which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done for him in the past, that by itself paves the way for future Yeshuot. A story is told, there's a certain shul in Bnei Brak, Beit Knesset Shtilei Zeitim. Apparently they have there a minyan kavua for Tfilat Vatikin. And there's a fellow that davens there, apparently Chazan kavua with a pleasant voice, Ezra Mizrachi. And he came across a seif in the Shulchan Aruch, which wasn't observed, which isn't generally speaking that observed, and he felt that maybe we should be medaktek on that halacha. It says in Siman Nun Aleph Siftes that Mizmor LeTodah mitzvah le'omro benegina. And in fact, he says, why don't we put the words of Mizmar L'Todah to some happy tune and sing it every day to be Mekayim the Sif in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Mitpalim of the Beit Knesset said that's a great idea. And that's in fact what they did. At some point, after a number of years, so this fellow, Rav Ezra Mizrachi, felt some pains, and after a while he goes to the doctor, does some tests, and the doctor, with a very stern, somber look, says, with all my years of experience, you would think that it's somewhat less difficult for me to tell my patients such things, but I'm sorry to inform you, he says, that I suspect that there's some form of a cancer that you've contracted. And the first reaction of this Rav Mizrachi says, number one, I need to give thanks to God for all the wonderful, healthy years I've had. And after a number of months, after things get somewhat worse, he decides he's going to go to the kever of the Beit Yosef in Tzfat. And he goes to the kever of the Beit Yosef and he says that Baruch Hashem, I was zoche to be mekayim what you wrote in the Shulchan Aruch, something that's not always done in that fashion. It was zoche to be mekayim, that which he said in the Shulchan Aruch, that when a person gives thanks, Mizmor L'Todah, it should be said with a great joy, it should be said with a negina, and he then asks HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a Yeshua. And in fact, when he went back to the doctor, some short time later, the doctor couldn't believe the fact that he didn't see anything. The tzilumim, the X-rays, they show that everything is gone. Chazal kovea Chanukah lehodot u'lalel shimcha gadol. On Chanukah Ma'oz Tzur, we thank God not only for the Yeshua from the Yevanim, but also for other Yeshuot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has provided us. Over the last couple of years, certainly on the national level, we've seen Yeshuot in addition to the Tzarot, but we've seen significant Yeshuot. And every individual, of course, is meant to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for his Yeshuot. So if Bezrat Hashem on Chanukah, we do give proper thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then we hope that we'll be Zoche, Laudot Lalel Shemcha Gadol, will be able to Az Egmar B'Shir Mizmor Chanukat HaMizbeach, and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu also for the Yeshua of Klal Yisrael and the building of Beit HaMikdash B'meher B'yameinu. Amen. Shabbat Shalom and Chanukah Sameach.